Alright, in this video I'm going to show you how to draw all the geometry for this gasket drawing. As a reference, you should have this in front of you, or if you don't have this in front of you, you would go to the R drive, go under AED 105 CAD Graphics, go into Handouts and Assignments, and then locate the O3A Gasket PDF. This drawing is in imperial units. This is 5.7 inches, and the information on how to get the drawing started instructions are here, where we have to place the center of these three circles here, 1.9, 1.8, 1.5 at 5, 5 on our drawing screen. Some of the dimensions you'll see have a 6x or 8x in front of them. This means is there 8 times in this drawing we have these circles with a diameter of 35.35. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And 6 times we have a circle with the radius of 0.4. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's the 6th one right there. I think all the other dimensions are pretty self-explanatory. Let's begin. Start by clicking on the New button. And in the Select Template dialog box, pick Open with No Template Imperial. Type LA at the command line, and we're going to create 3 layers. An object layer, or use OBJ as an abbreviation, a center layer, or CEN, and then we will eventually need a DIMS layer. The object layer should be set to 0.5 line weight. The center layer I'm going to change to magenta, and the DIMS layer I'm going to change to red. It is optional. You can leave the center layer continuous, or you can choose to change it to center 2. So I'm going to make the object layer current and close the layer dialog manager. I'm going to begin with these 3 circles and show you some tips and tricks to go a little bit faster. So we'll start by typing in C for circle and typing in 5, 5 to begin that gasket drawing at that location. The first circle has got a radius of 1.5. When you're using AutoCAD, if you've got a command that you've just used and you want to do that same command again, just hit enter. It will repeat the command. You can also save some time by using the @ symbol. So here, where it's asking us to specify our center point, you can either pick the center of the circle, or if you type in the @ symbol at this point and hit enter, it will actually find the center of the circle because it was the last point that we used on the screen. Now I can type in 1.8, hit enter to start the circle command again, hit the @ symbol, enter, and then type in 1.9. So one of the other ways we can save ourselves some time is by not having to hit enter so often to repeat the circle command. I've got quite a few more circles to create, and instead of having to type circle or hit enter every time, I'm going to want it to be repeated automatically. We can do that by typing in multiple and then typing in the command we want to repeat. Now if I begin to draw this circle here, as soon as I finish, it's going to automatically go right into the circle command, and I can start to draw this one. This circle is exactly 2.2 inches in the X direction and 0.7 inches in the Y direction from the center of the circles we were just drawing. Remember that that @ symbol is retaining that information, so I'm going to use what's called a relative coordinate. I'm going to type in this time @ but instead of hitting enter, I'm going to type in the change in X, 2.2, comma, and then 0.7, the change in Y. Now I've got that circle started, and I know its radius is 0.8. As soon as I finish that circle, it asks me to place a second circle. From there, I can track down from the circle I just created and put in a distance of 1.4, which is double the 0.7 from the center. Notice that the radius is still 0.8, so I'm going to hit enter, and now we have the 2 circles drawn. I'm now going to create the circles along the outside as an array. But first I've got to get this first circle in place. And I can see that I can only track right now at 0, 90, 180, and 270 or 90-degree angle increments. I want to change my polar tracking to match that of the drawing, 30. So I'm going to change this to 30, and then I'm going to see if I can track. I still can't track. The reason for this is I have a second setting that I've got to change when I change my polar tracking, which will allow me to O-track at those angles as well. To change that setting, right-click on the polar tracking icon and then click on the Track Settings option. Under Polar Tracking tab, under the Object Snap Tracking settings, turn on Track using all polar angle settings, and it will now track at the 30-degree angle increments, and then hit OK. Now I can track out to the circle with the radius of 1.8. Click and then type in D for diameter and put in the diameter of 0.35. Now I want that circle to be the same size circle all the way around. I can either use, just keep repeating my options and clicking on those points and tracking out at 30-degree angle increments, or I can hit Escape and I can use the Array command. So I'm going to type in AR for array. I'm going to select the circle, hit enter, and this type of array would be a polar array. So pick polar. For the center, I'm going to pick the center of the large circles, and it's going to give me a preview. It's going to assume that I want 6 objects at 60-degree angles, 360 degrees. Notice that once I put enough information in, this array creation ribbon appeared for me. I'm going to change these values to match that of the drawing. So instead of 6 items, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if I change that, what will happen is the angle between will automatically change to 72, which is 5 or 360 divided by 5. If I set that back to 60, and then just click anywhere on your screen, anywhere in one of the other fields, it will accept that information and then show me the preview. And this now looks correct. So I'm going to hit Close Array and then continue with my circles by typing in multiple and then circle. Now I know I need 3 circles here, one here with a radius of 0.4, another one here, and here. I also have 2 circles here and here. I've got to reference the distance I need to go to put them from the center. If I add 2.2 plus 0.52 to make that 2.72 in the x direction and 1.8 in the y direction, I can use a relative coordinate. So I'm going to type in from this time. The from allows me to pick this point as my last point entered. And now when I type in my relative coordinate at 2.72, 1.8, it places the circle in the proper position. That should have a diameter of 0.35. Next circle, same center, will be a radius of 0.4. Now I can track down from here 3.6 and then put the other circle in the center of that with a diameter of 0.35. So whenever possible, I'm using the default last values that I use. So you notice up here I drew the inside circle first and then the larger circle second, but then when I tracked down here I just went ahead and drew the larger circle first because it already had the radius plugged into the command. I didn't have to retype it, and then I did the inside circle second. Next I have to create the circle that's here in the center, and if I look at my gasket drawing again, I see that if I add up 2.2 plus 0.52 plus 0.4, that distance is 3.12. So this time I'm just going to simply track from the center and then drag in the direction I want that circle's center to go in and type in at the command line 3.12 and hit enter. This has got a diameter of 0.35, or this is the correct radius, so I will hit enter and it should be the correct size. Now I'm ready to hit escape to get out of the circle command, and I'm going to clean up some of my line work. Use the trim command and use the outside circles here to trim to, and also this large circle to trim those circles, and hit enter. Now I can take away or trim away this section of those smaller circles, and then the little section of arc between those smaller circles on the large arc. This is now beginning to look a lot more like the gasket. Next, we need to get the line work that was in here. So I'm going to begin by typing in L for line. Actually, I'm going to begin by drawing this line. And I can reference it from the midpoint of this arc. If I go over to here, it's 5.7. And if I go up from the center, it's 1. So I'm going to use a tool called temporary tracking to track over 5.7 and then up 1. So I'm typing L for line. And if you don't have this midpoint object snap turned on, just go down here and make sure that you have the checkbox next to midpoint. But I'm going to track from here. But before I start tracking, I'm going to type in TT and hit enter, which is short for temporary tracking. Now I'm going to track from that midpoint in the right direction and type in 5.7. Or I should say in the 0 direction, which gives me a little X. Then I can track straight up from there and put in a distance of 1, and it will begin my line in the correct position. Now I can go down from there to create the length of my line would be 2, and I want to finish this line so it's tangent to this search circle. There's no way for me to select it with the running object snaps that I have set here, but I'm going to turn on a temporary object snap override by holding down the shift key, right clicking, and choosing tangent from the list. Now I can put my line next to that circle. You can see if I put it next to any one of these circles, it shows me a tangent symbol, and it will show me where that line will be tangent to that circle. So I'm going to click, and then it creates the line, and then hit escape. I do need to create this line in here too, so I'm going to type in L for line, and this time I'm going to have to use that tangent object snap twice. So I'm going to hold down the shift key, right click and choose tangent, but I'm going to get a tangent symbol with 3 dots after it, which is called an ellipsis. This is called a deferred tangency. The reason it's called a deferred tangency is the computer does not yet know where that tangent point is going to be because there's not enough information yet. But what I'm going to tell it is that I want it to be tangent to this large circle with the radius of 1.9. Now notice as soon as I click on that large circle, it stays kind of like an elastic band attached to that large circle. If I repeat that process, shift, right click, and tangent again, and pick this circle, when I'm done picking, it will find the 2 tangent points that need to be located in order to draw that line so it's tangent to this circle and this circle. Now in order to put that line up here and this line up here, I'm going to use the mirror command. MI for mirror is the alias. I'm going to pick these 2 lines and hit enter. And when it asks me to pick the mirror point, I'll pick the center of these circles and then either drag to the left or to the right, doesn't make any difference, in the 0 or 180 degree direction, and it's going to show me the 2 lines that will be mirrored on the opposite side. As soon as I pick the second point of that mirror line, at the command line it will ask if I want to erase the source object. In this case I don't. Notice it's the default answer, so if I hit enter, now I have the same exact lines on the opposite side of the gasket. I'm going to use the trim command again, and I'm going to use the lines that I just drew on the outside as trimming edges and hit enter, which will allow me to trim away that portion of the larger arc and these portions of the smaller arcs at the corners. Now the only thing I have left to do is create these arcs here on the inside. I'm going to use the fillet command, but I need to know the radius. These 2 arcs here and here have a radius of 0.6, and as I explained before, this arc here has a radius of 0.4. So I'm going to type in F for fillet, and I can see that the radius is set to 0 right now. I'm going to change that radius by clicking on that radius option and putting in 0.6. Now I can pick between these two circles and it will create an arc with the radius of 0.6. I need to do exactly the same thing a second time, so I'll hit enter, and I don't need to change the radius again. It will stay or remain the same as the last time I set it. Pick those two circles and create the radius on that side. Now when I go in the third time, I do want to change the radius to 0.4 and then pick between these two circles here. I need to trim again, TR for trim. Pick the arcs on the outside, which will be used as our trimming edges to trim away the circles on the inside. Hit enter, and then just pick the portions of the circles that we want to remove. Now the gasket looks pretty much like it's supposed to. All of the line work is where it ought to be. In the next video, take a look at how to create the circular center marks and the regular center marks for this gasket drawing.